Yeah.
Okay, I think we're live. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome, Libronauts, back to Libronauts Book Club. We are a science fiction book club that meets monthly, except for November and December, and we read a variety of science fiction books. So far this year, we've read space sci-fi. We've read a Jurassic Park, so bioengineering. We've read something that was a little more fantasy. We've read something with
Like AI.
yes, yep, AI and robots.
Yeah.
And this month we read The Water Knife by Paolo Bacigalupi.
You were the only one that's saying that author's name tonight. It can't be me. I practiced. I was like, Elisa's got it.
I did have to look it up and I had to like repeat it a few times. I
I
think I'm saying
practiced
it
and
correctly.
sorry.
No worries. Well, tonight I am with Gwen. She's my co-host. She is the person that selected this book for us to discuss this month. So yeah, Gwen, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about your reading tastes, your book club, your podcast. Go for it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gwen. My YouTube channel, you can find me at Gwendolyn Kinsinger. I read pretty much anything. I'm pretty light on the fantasy, though. I love sci-fi, romance, thrillers. I read some historical fiction, contemporary fiction, literary fiction, a little bit of horror, tiny bit of fantasy. Think that sums it up. I like nonfiction too, memoir, stuff like that. So I read a little bit of everything, which is kind of hard because you don't know what you're ever going to find on my channel. But I also do have a podcast called Talk Bookish to Me. Elise has been on my podcast, and it's interesting because we talked about climate fiction was the last episode we did together. And I was like, oh, this is kind of would fit in with that a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's me.
And hopefully you guys know who I am. I'm Elise. I'm the host of this amazing book club. All right.
We
Go
definitely
ahead.
needed a sci-fi book club.
Yes, that's kind of the thing. I was like, I haven't really seen that around much. So
I
maybe
will fill that gap, you said.
exactly. Exactly. All right. Let us know in the comments if you read the book and what you rated it. Hello, Jules. Welcome. Hello. Sorry, I haven't finished it yet. Just found my copy a few days ago. No worries at all. We are going to be going into some spoilers. We're going to do like a spoiler-free synopsis, but then after that, we will talk spoilers. So if you haven't read it and you don't want to be spoiled, you might want to step out after that point. So just a heads up, but thanks for stopping by. Did not read the book, but here for my bestie. Aw.
Thanks, Jules. You're the best.
He says to remember batch of galoshes. What? What's that? That's kind of fun to say, though.
Yeah.
Oh, for his name.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Now that you're like, oh, his name. Oh, okay. I'll have to practice that.
Oh my goodness. Hello, Sam. Didn't finish, tried, but just wasn't pulling me in. I honestly kind of expected that. I know that you told me you got it off the Audible sale when that one was on sale, and I was like, I don't know if Sam's gonna like this one.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the discussion.
Yeah, but thank you for trying it out.
Yeah, thanks for giving it a go. I mean, sometimes you just have to try, like a lot of people are like, I don't like sci-fi. And I was like, well, if you tried this genre of sci-fi, and that's what's so good about your book club is there's so many different genres within sci-fi, just like there's so many genres within thrillers or romance, different tropes and stuff like that. So you just got to keep trying and you find some you like, you find some you don't,
Exactly. Yep. All right, where are we? Okay. So while people are dropping their ratings, do you want to go ahead and give a spoiler-free synopsis on the
Okay.
water?
I'm not going to read the book. I'm going to try to give it a short and sweet synopsis. So The Water Knife. It mainly follows like three different characters, Angel, Lucy, and Maria. But you start with Angel, and he is the Water Knife, and he's working for the state of Nevada, specifically like one person, trying to infiltrate and destroy Arizona's water supply because water is scarce. And there's also like these legal rights. Someone's trying to get the legal rights to the Colorado River. And it's basically just a fight for water rights. That's what I think.
Mhm. Yep.
Perfect.
Well said. Was even listening at 3 times speed. Was just couldn't commit with my current schedule. I get it. No worries at all. Alrighty. So this author, he's actually written a lot. This one, I think, was his 6th book. And he's had a new release as recently as last year. So have you read by this author before, or is this your first?
Okay, this is my first.
Mhm.
How I came about this author was last year, we read The Light Pirate.
Mhm.
And my brother-in-law came to visit me and he was like, "Have you read any good books recently?" And I was like, "Yes, The Light Pirate." So I started telling him about that book and he said, "Oh, if you like things like The Light Pirate," he read this one and he goes, "I recommend this one." And I was like, "Okay, cool, I'll pick it up." So I immediately went out to Pango Books and got the book because I couldn't find it in bookstores for some reason around here. But I got it from Pango. And then like a month later, you were like, "Hey, do you want to be on the book club again?" And I was like, "Yeah." You're like, "You have any suggestions?" And I was like, "Let's do the water knife." Because I didn't want it to sit around on my TBR forever, you know? So I was like, it's all happening again. So
Mhm.
that's how I even heard of the author, but I haven't read anything by them. Not sure if I would pick something else up. It'd have to be I mean, I'm not in love with the writing. So it'd
Mhm.
have to be like a synopsis or premise that like pulls me in that makes me want to read it.
Yeah. Yeah, his one that came out last year is actually a literary fantasy.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's Nivola, I think it's called, and I'd seen it around, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together until I was looking at a list of other books that he'd written,
Okay.
and it almost looks like a dragon eye or something. I don't know if it's a dragon, but
Yeah.
I wasn't surprised.
Interesting. Like totally different genre.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So, apparently he dabbles in multiple, so
Yeah.
if you didn't like sci-fi, maybe try his fantasy. I live in Colorado and used to live in New Mexico. Water rights are nuts. Okay, so it's like kind of a thing. That's
Yeah. So, yeah, the setting, I guess.
ooh. Yeah, I've never lived in Arizona, but I visit there annually. Um, and just I don't know how like dry it is out there. Like it's kind of
It's
a dark.
so dry.
Yeah.
I've only driven through
Mhm.
Nevada, Arizona, that area. I mean, I've been to California like a couple times, but just not a lot. Not really recently either.
Mhm.
But even it I went to Las Vegas last summer. And the amount of water I had to drink to feel like I wasn't dying, the amount of chapstick I had to apply to my lips. I think I went through like 3 tubes. I'm
Oh,
like, it was unreal. And the same thing with like Arizona and stuff. And even when I was in the military, I was stationed in Oklahoma, and it
mm.
would be like 110 degrees and I would not be sweating because it was just a dry heat. It would just suck everything out of you. You know, you just felt dry all the time. Whereas like here, it could be 90 degrees and I'm just like sweating, you know? So like it is just a dry, like earth cracking dryness out there.
Yep. Anytime I'm out there after a few days, my hair, I can go like this and it's crunchy. My face, it doesn't matter how much moisturizer I put on it, I feel like my face is gonna crack.
I know I never have to wash my hair daily, but when I was there, I did have to because my hair was just like straw if I
Yeah.
didn't. It is so crazy. Even flying, like if you're on a plane and you're going from like the East Coast, like to out there, you're just like, where'd the green go?
Mhm.
Where's the leaves?
In Colorado, recently got permission to have a small rain barrel in our yard. The water falling out of the sky is already owned. What? Oh my goodness.
Wait, what?
Wow.
That is insane. I have never heard that. This is the type of stuff they don't talk about in the media.
Right. Oh my goodness.
Oh man, that's wild. We recently got permission to catch our own rain.
Oh my gosh. So like what happens if you do it without permission, is that like a fine? Is there jail time? Like,
Oh my goodness.
let us know. That's kind of, I mean, this is said to be like a near future.
Yeah, maybe too near and we didn't know about it.
Right. Okay, let's see. So, what are some of the good Lord,
Fiction.
science fiction aspects of this book?
Okay, so I would say the main ones are climate change,
Mhm,
which is what I kind of love in science fiction,
mhm,
the water scarcity, and also just this like dystopian society that's been created because of like the hierarchy based on the water rights.
mhm.
And it's so crazy because I started reading this book and I like messaged Lisa, I was like, I don't know if this is sci-fi enough. It took me a while to like realize like, no, it is. Calm yourself.
Yeah.
It is. But yeah, it took me a while to really like pick up on those elements and realize like it is sci-fi and dystopian is sci-fi. But just like the blending of the cultures too, a lot had to do with the dystopian aspect and stuff like that too.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's a lot of emphasis on like the electric vehicles. And
Mm,
I know that's a thing now, but like this was from 2015, I want to say. I think
yeah.
2015. At least my copy says 2015.
Yeah. And also that the buildings that they made that recycled the water.
Oh yeah, the arcologies.
Yeah, yeah, 2015, mine says too. Yeah, which I was like, how number one, even if there isn't water scarcity, we should still be doing something like that. And
Mhm,
I know there are certain places that do, probably like amusement park, like,
mhm,
but I was like, that's not a bad idea.
mhm.
Like, if it can be done, why not? Why are we not doing that anyway to help ourselves before we get to this point?
Right. And
So
I do think because they talked a lot about, I can't remember specifics, but something about like Chinese something or other. So there was a lot of influence, and like I think stuff like this is kind of already happening in like some of
different
the
Asian, yeah.
countries in Asia. Yeah, like
Hmm.
South Korea, Japan, China,
Hmm.
where they have these more like eco and sustainable types of buildings and infrastructure and things like that. So
Yeah.
that was a pretty common theme. One thing that I noticed towards the end, I gotta try to find it. Okay, and guys, we are getting into spoilers now, so heads up.
It's up.
So after Angel survived the shootout at the gas station, and my gosh, my dog's downstairs. He just barked really loud. It scared me.
Couldn't hear him.
Good. um, he was healing, and it had been like a week or something, and he was on growth stimulants. And I had to look that up. I was like, do we do that now? Or is that like a futuristic? It's futuristic. It's
Yeah.
something
But
that
it
we're,
sounds like it could be,
yeah,
and that's why it's like near future.
yeah,
Because like we're so close to things like that, like,
hmm,
yeah.
for sure. Let's see. Okay, so it's a fine. Haven't looked into it. Might actually be a company, not a state. Okay.
Either way, though,
Exactly.
not being able to catch the free rain falling from the sky. So, like, if it falls into your grass or yard or your roof, is that not, what's the difference between catching it in a barrel and like it watering your lawn anyway? That's
Right.
just so wild to me.
That is. Okay, so you mentioned the climate fiction or the cli-fi aspect of this book. So you and I had this discussion on your podcast a couple months back. What are some other climate fiction books that you've read and enjoyed, just so we can kind of share it here if people want to pick up more of those subgenre?
So I would definitely say The Light Pirate. That's probably honestly my favorite one to date. I have such fond memories of that and that crazy wacky discussion where I dropped internet like 500 times. But some that also have to do with like water scarcity and like just things being like super dry, and they are YA, so they may be a little bit more approachable. Like if
Mhm.
this wasn't approachable, but you're still looking for that topic, is Dry by Neil Schusterman, and also Not a Drop to Drink by Mindy McGinnis. But also Charlotte McConaughey, she wrote like Migrations, there was Wolves, The Wild Dark Shores. Those are all different kind of climate fictions, not necessarily related to water.
Mhm. Excuse me.
Mm.
Those are all great. I still haven't picked up a McConaughey one, and I really need to.
Yeah, just pick one that sounds the best to you. I mean, I have Wild Dark Shores on my TBR because one of my patrons sent it to me. They were like, I know you're interested in this book. Let me send it to you. And I was like, okay, but I haven't read it yet. So
Mhm.
maybe this fall.
Yeah. So the ones that I would recommend, they are both by, oh gosh, what's her name? Gabrielle Korn. And they're not marketed as prequel, sequel, or even companion novels, but I would read one before the other. The first is, oh my goodness, I knew I was going to forget what it was called. The second one is called The Shutouts, but the first one, bear with me, guys. Yours for the Taking. So I would read Yours for the Taking first, and then The Shutouts. These ones, basically, climate change has destroyed or is in the process of destroying the earth. And in one of the books, we're focusing on a group of people who have, you know, um, some of the billionaires, they've kind of jetted off to space to save themselves. And then there's like these basically communities under a dome type situation, protected from the elements outside. And then the other book is kind of focusing on the people that are still out in the elements, having to directly deal with the impacts of
Hmm.
the climate change. So I would definitely recommend those.
Nice.
Yes.
Um, I have a show that it's kind of, I guess, climate fiction. It's called, is it 3% or what's it called? Or is it called The Rain? I think it's called The Rain. What is it called? It's on Netflix. I want to find it because is this it? Let me look. It might be. Yes, it's called The Rain. It's a Danish post-apocalyptic television series. It was on Netflix. That's where I watched it. I don't know if it's still available. You know how they like to take things on and off.
Yeah.
But it was so interesting. It's about this brother and sister that their parents like work at this like company, and then there's this like toxic rain that falls and like kills everybody out. But their parents get them to this bunker, so they live in this bunker for a while, and then eventually like years pass, and then they come out of the bunker, and it's like they're walking around in this like post-apocalyptic world. So
Ooh.
that's great. It's The Rain.
Is it in English or?
Yeah, you can watch it like, yeah, in English. It's dubbed. And but it is Danish. And so my brother-in-law and his like, and family live in Denmark. So they
We
were like in
do?
Copenhagen and stuff like that. So it was kind of cool. And like the actors and actresses was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the male, the brother or whatever, I was like, he looks like my nephews.
Oh.
So it was so cool. But yeah, The Rain, it's really interesting. You would like it, I think.
Oh, yeah. Holy cow. I need to come over for dinner or something and be like, "Hey, I'm a roommate out there."
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, Denmark, Netherlands, Belgium, like Sweden, I would kill to live in any of those countries.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. It's a fine for it to fall. Wait, it's fine for it to fall on the grass, but collecting it means it can't wind up in the irrigation system.
Oh my goodness.
That makes sense, I guess.
And she's like, none of it really makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That's where I am.
Oh, no. Started reading The Light Pirate, really unsure about it because I really did not like Good Morning Midnight. I didn't read that. Did you end up reading that?
No, I did not read that.
Okay. Well, if you're interested, our discussion on The Light Pirate is still posted. So if you
If
do
you
end up,
do make it through.
yeah, you should go watch that. Um, I get that. Like, it was not my favorite. You
Mhm.
loved it, right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gave it 5 stars. It's
Mm.
funny because at the time I was being like super critical of it and I was like 4 stars. But after I mean, I can still in detail tell you what that book was about.
Yeah.
So I was like, obviously it's sticking with me. So I'm giving it 5 stars. So
Yeah.
I literally raised my rating on the live.
Thinking back, like, I think I did give it 4 stars, which is a pretty decent rating, but I just
It
don't
hasn't
remember
stuck
what.
with you,
Yeah,
whereas like it did for me. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Excuse me. Okay. Where were we? Okay, so we kind of talked about this a little bit, but the setting was kind of a big part of this book. So, I mean, if this would have taken place anywhere else, how would it have changed the story?
Well, I think it's interesting that it took place there because obviously that's like the totally different side of the United States for me. Here I am over in Virginia, and I'm like, I'm reading about over here. And the whole time I was reading it, I was wondering what's happening in New York, what's happening in Florida, what's happening in Maine, what's happening in Tennessee, what's happening in Virginia. I was wondering these things. Like, we're hearing about this select, and also it didn't really talk about how this water scarcity came to be. And
Mhm.
that was a huge thing for me, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I was like, how did this come to be? Is this only this area or like what? So I had to do a lot of like thinking, but also kind of ignoring that, pushing that into the back of my head so I could
Mhm.
forge ahead. I do think it was important to have it there because it's known for like dry, little to no rain. Also, California's always been under a drought advisory, and don't use your water to wash your car or water your lawn and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Also, the Colorado River being there. So I do think it was important that it was set there because when I think of like where are some of the driest places in the United States, I'm going to say there. I'm not going to say like New York City. I'm not saying Virginia. I'm not, so it did make sense. And I think if it would have been set somewhere else, we definitely would have had to have like more background, like how we got here, what's going on. Whereas it was more believable where it was set.
Yeah. Yeah. There was mention, I'll have to find um my tab on it, but they did mention something about like Miami and a couple other cities, but it wasn't the same situation. So it was almost like there was an active apocalypse happening, but it was affecting places differently. So like Lucy's sister up in Vancouver, like
Right. She was fine. She was like, come escape here. And how
yeah,
it was green and all of this. So I'm like, what is happening there? And why is it, is it only, and then I was thinking globally, like, is this only,
right.
this continent or like, is this happening in Europe, South America? Like what's
Right,
going on in other countries, continents, what are the oceans looking like? What,
right.
give me more information.
Yeah. All right. So it said Phoenix would fall as surely as New Orleans and Miami had done, just as Houston and San Antonio and Austin had fallen. So for whatever reason, obviously not because they were dry, at least not Miami and New Orleans,
Yeah.
but like why? What happened?
Yeah, exactly.
Write another one. I need to know. Let's see. So there's a lot of discussion in this book about borders, like crossing the border, but they're
Like
talking about
even crossing the Colorado, like you can't
exactly.
do that and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like identifying people, like calling people Texans and Callies and
Callies, yeah.
Tigers and
Yeah, I
so
think that's always going to be a thing, unfortunately, whether it's done slanderous
mhm,
or not. I think that's just the nature of language and that we shorten words all the time.
mhm,
Just instead of saying like what's happening, we're like what's up or just things like that too. So I think we're always going to do that, unfortunately. Is that good? Is that bad? I'm not weighing in on that. But the crossing the border thing, it's interesting because obviously, in our current day, we have certain borders in our head that we think about, like, oh, this is the United States. Then you cross the border into Canada or you cross the border into Mexico. But in this time, they've created different borders, like the
mhm,
Colorado River is a border. And so I think it's just like anything, like even when they change school districts,
mhm,
when they change voting districts,
mhm,
I think it's always going to be something that happens and that you also have to be aware of. You have to constantly be aware of it because, like, one day it might be okay to cross the Colorado and the next day it's not all of a sudden. So, why do these things happen? Greed,
mhm,
money, population, control,
mhm,
hierarchy. There's so many reasons that it happens. And I think it is going to continue to happen, not
mhm.
necessarily for water scarcity reasons, just for all those other reasons that I said.
Yeah.
But I also think that in this book, it brought different cultures together. And I loved that. And so it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. You know, it can be good, but it just depends which one of these reasons, why did it happen, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting too that when kind of what you were saying, the borders that we have in our minds now, it's on such a large scale, like country borders.
Mhm.
Whereas in this world, it's like it's on a much smaller scale.
Right,
You
so
know,
they've just, like they've cut themselves off,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
We figure we'll end up in Minnesota or Manitoba eventually.
Yeah, it's crazy.
This one.
Ooh.
Who is the hero? Who is the villain?
I don't think in this story, I don't necessarily I would say maybe the only hero. I don't know. Angel's definitely not a hero. I mean, he has hero qualities.
Yeah.
But like he's also I feel like everybody, it's almost like good versus evil. You know,
Mhm.
everybody has a little good, everybody has a little bad, everybody has a little hero complex, everybody's a little villainous, you
Yeah.
know? Um I think it changes
Mhm.
throughout the novel, to be honest. Um but Maria, poor little Maria, you know, I just felt so bad for her and I just wanted her to have a better life.
Mhm.
I don't think she had ill intent. I don't think her friend had ill intent. Did
Mhm.
they do things that were questionable? Sure. But in this society of this book, who wouldn't? You
For
know,
sure.
like so yeah, that's a hard question.
Yeah. I like what you said though, how it's like it depends on where you're at in the book.
Right.
Because, for majority of it, I definitely saw Lucy as, if not a hero, at least somebody that was as close to a hero as we were going to see. But then, I don't know, towards the end, like even some of the decisions she was making, I'm like, I
Mhm.
don't know.
Yeah.
But I think, like, I don't know, there's a lot of morally gray decisions, morally gray characters. But like, I find it very interesting. And I mentioned when we were backstage before we went live that I started this book reading it physically. So for the first like third of the book, I was saying his name in my head on hell.
Oh.
And then once I listened to the audio, he does eventually say on hell,
Mhm.
talking to Lucy about it. And he's like, yeah, it's actually pronounced on hell, but just call me Angel. But he's constantly telling himself, like, maybe I'm the devil. So that juxtaposition of his real name versus his character and how he feels about himself, like, if I had to say anybody was a hero, honestly, I would say it was Angel.
Yeah. I mean, I
But
definitely
he doesn't
think,
say that about himself.
but in the beginning, you think like he's with the bad guy. He's with
Right,
Catherine.
right.
He's bombing these water plants and
Mhm.
killing all of these people. So, like, are you going to call him a hero in that moment? No, but he's also like, he doesn't, that's his job. He doesn't know better. He thinks they're doing it for the greater good. But yeah, so it's a little back and forth, you know? Even like if you were Catherine, you would obviously think the people living in California were the villains.
Mhm.
You know, the people trying to take away what you have. You think they're the villains. But obviously, if you're, Maria, you're like, no, Catherine is the villain and Angel is the villain. And, so yeah, it's interesting. Like you said, depending where you are in the scenario, it's gonna
Mhm.
change.
Yeah. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe not a hero, but I think Angel had enough redeeming qualities
Yes.
that could kind of like cancel out the bad that he
Yeah.
was in.
Yeah. I mean, he quickly grew on me.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
same.
especially, like, trying to save her, even though, like, he didn't have to in that apartment or that building or whatever it's called again, the arc what
Arcology.
the arco what why is it called that? Is that, like, a real thing?
I actually Googled it and I was trying to get a picture of it for the mood board, but like there wasn't one that really fit the description
Yeah.
I was looking for. Um, So, a concept for designing large, self-sustaining, ecologically low-impact urban habitats is kind of like the official uh, definition.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see.
I just imagine like waterfalls and like greenery, like plants hanging down.
Yeah.
And then when they jumped in that like pool where they had to like swim underwater where they were like getting away, so I was like, it's almost like, I don't know, like I can picture it in my head, but I don't think I've ever seen anything like it before. But
Mhm.
anyway, the arcology, is that what it's called? Yeah. So I liked that. I liked that when he was trying to save her, even though he could have just left her there. And
Yeah.
so you could see that he was kind of turning against Catherine. Well, also because Catherine was turning against him
Yeah.
also. So it
Yeah.
was kind of like, was he doing that on, I don't know. There's just so many like back and forths.
Right. Ooh, we have a comment. In the old SimCity game, arcologies. Really? My attention span, I've never been able to get to the end of it. So I didn't know.
Me either. Interesting. I wonder what it looked like.
Yeah.
Because I kind of imagine it like kind of like a domed-ish building with like little
Mhm.
apartment. You know that book? What's that book that has a very tall building on the front? Is it like, is it, I'm gonna look it up. See if is it like the Trust? Or yeah, it's just called Trust. And it has like a seafoam green cover, but it's
Ooh.
in this like glass kind of dome thing. So I
Mhm.
picture that building, but with like water falling and greenery. I don't know why.
Yeah, I like that.
So
Ooh.
that's kind of what I pictured in my head.
Yeah.
Because I mean, a lot of people live there, like basically the whole city in Nevada, like they were allowed to live there so they could, they
Yeah.
had all the water and that's where the water went. So,
Well, some of the I don't this has gotta be AI. It's gotta be. But the term arcology was actually coined back in 1969, so it's, like, not a new concept.
okay.
This was kind of again, this is
Oh, interesting. That looks even cooler.
yeah, because then there's kind of like a what is that? Like an atrium or something kind
Yeah.
of in the middle.
Yeah, that is cool.
Mhm.
I wonder
Oh,
if,
yep, look.
yeah, I see that now. Oh, and it even has like kind of a breakdown. That's really cool.
And it's
Oh,
interesting.
yeah, that is like the Sim City one. Look,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like the same thing you just showed me. That's wild. Well, I didn't picture it like that, but um yeah, very cool. See, this is more what I kind of pictured. Maybe without all the greenery on the outside. I'm
Right.
thinking the greenery on the inside.
Oh, yeah. I like that.
Yeah, interesting. All right.
So, if you lived in this world, what role would you play? We see a lot of different characters, a lot of different involvement with what's going on.
I'm the Maria. I don't think I would be the Catherine. I don't think I would be the Lucy. Lucy's Angel's job too dangerous. I'm
Mm,
absolutely not a water knife.
yeah,
Okay, I'm not a water knife. And I don't think I could be Lucy because I think I would just wanna be with my family if this was going on. I don't think I would be out there on the front line. Like, just think of, like, I don't know, when big storms come through or, like, COVID comes through and, like, everybody's, like, away from each other and then, like, you're out there on the front lines reporting. No, 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 no.
yeah.
I'm the Maria. I'm trying to get to a better place. No
Mhm.
matter what it is, I'm trying to make sure I'm safe, my family's safe, my friends are safe. Let's get out of here. So I
Yeah,
think I would have to be her or just like a normal citizen. It doesn't necessarily have to be her. But I'd be one of those people trying to avoid all those gangs
mhm.
with the hyenas
Yeah,
and trying to get out of here. Or
yeah.
maybe I'd be on the East Coast and oblivious to what's happening.
So, speaking of the hyenas, the
Mm,
character that he was just called the vet.
yeah.
First of all, was it ever confirmed? I kind of imagined, like, he's, like, a veteran, like a war veteran.
Okay. I did not picture him that way, but
No? Well, just because he seems so like maybe like PTSD had affected him in a really bad way,
Okay.
kind of make him a little crazy. But that was a very interesting character, and we didn't see him very much. He was talked about a lot.
Yeah, like I felt his presence and I was scared of
Mhm.
him, but he
Yeah.
didn't get a lot of page time.
Yeah.
Just like that one
Thankfully.
scene where he did get her and capture her, and then her friend came and released her. Yeah.
So, yeah.
The scare tactics, not a
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I also I don't know. It just kind of reminded me of like when they call him like a gangster,
Mhm.
I didn't really think like Vietnam vet or like war vet or something like that. It made me think of something different,
Yeah.
like drugs, money, control, women,
Yeah.
power, things like that. So,
Yeah. Hmm. Well, I would like to think in this world that I would be a Catherine Case because
okay.
I if I had to pick, but I don't think I could handle the stress. So, what was Lucy's sister's name? Anna, Annie?
Yeah, Anna.
I'm Anna. I'm up in
You're in
Canada
Canada.
with my family, far, far away.
Yeah. Yeah, I that's another thing. I would like to think like, "Oh, I could be in charge and I could
Mhm.
do," but I'm always about like embetterment and, like I don't want things to be for like one person and I don't want everything to belong to one person. Um so yeah, I couldn't. Couldn't be Catherine Case. Also, I thought it was interesting some of the characters, like they had first and last names, but then some people would call them by their first name and
Mhm.
some people would call them by their last name, and I thought that was so confusing.
Yeah. And the 2 characters like Tumi and Timu or something like that.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. I'm like, "Why are we doing this? Why
Yeah,
are we doing
yeah.
this?"
Like, no.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So overall, was this book believable? What worked for you? What didn't?
Okay, so I think the book was believable somewhat. I
Mhm.
think the sci-fi elements were believable. I think kind of the government political side of things was believable.
Mhm.
But obviously like they kind of weren't because it felt like it went to the extreme. And I feel like we're on the opposite end of the extreme right now. I feel like if we were closer to it, then it'd be like, "Oh, that's totally, normal." Whereas
Mhm.
like think about someone born in like 1901 and you're like one day you're going to have a television and you're going to be able to watch movies on it. People would be like, "You're crazy. That's so far away." But if you told someone in like I don't know, 1980 that like one day you're going to have a cell phone that you can talk to people while you walk around the street. That's
Mhm.
not so unbelievable because
Right.
you're like, well, we're kind of closer to that. So I felt like it was believable, but was also not believable, if that
Mhm.
even makes sense.
Yes.
Um, as far as like, and there were parts that made sense to me. Obviously, if there is a water scarcity, you're going to try to be collecting as much water as you can. You're gonna try to buy the stocks when they're the lowest. That already kind of thing happens now. What worked for me was the second half of the book. The
Mhm.
first half of the book to me felt very much like setup. You're
Mhm.
getting a lot of characters, you're getting a lot of politics, you're getting a lot of like things that are happening. And it kind of happened. It was just a lot. It was
Mhm.
a lot was dumped on you. Okay. And I think that they could have spread it out a little bit more. Also, what didn't work is I have no idea how this came to be.
Mhm.
What happened to the water? Where did the water go? Like, where, like, how did we get to this point?
Mhm.
And I think that it would have been more helpful for me to see the back end of it. Like, did it stop raining? Like what happened? Did they
Mhm.
just start sucking water out of rivers and, all I just didn't know how it became to be. So you're just dropped in knowing from the synopsis because it doesn't even really explain that there's a water scarcity. It just kind of starts talking about these buildings where they recycle the water and then water rights, really.
Mhm.
So it doesn't really do that great of a job explaining it, or it didn't to me.
Mhm.
I think they could have done flashbacks
Ooh, that would have been
of
nice.
like 15 years ago,
Mhm.
what it looked like, 10 years ago, what it looked like, 5 years ago, what it looked like, kind of leading up to where they were now.
Yeah.
Flashbacks would have helped me a ton.
Mhm.
But once the characters met up, Lucy and Angel and Maria, once they met up, I was like, "Okay, I'm in it now," because then you're getting, like, more of the action, and they're focusing more away from the politics and more to, like, the everyday people, boots on the ground people, like, "How are we gonna overcome this?"
Right.
And overcome this is not the water scarcity, the overcoming it is, how are we gonna get to safety?
Right.
How are we gonna get out of this situation? Um, so I think that making them meet maybe a little bit sooner, explaining how we got to the water scarcity situation,
Mhm.
would have made it better for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I didn't think of that, of flashbacks helping, but that would have made a world of difference.
Like, how did, Lucy and her sister how are they in different places?
Right.
I mean, I know Lucy went from was she in Texas too? I don't know where she originally came from, and now she was in Phoenix. And same thing with Maria. Maria was from Texas and she was there. So why? How show me how they got there,
Right.
you know, type thing.
Yeah.
How did Catherine all of a sudden become the powerful one that controlled the Nevada water resources?
Queen of the Colorado River or something.
Yeah. How?
Yeah.
Where are these new territory lines and stuff? And how did we get there? And, you know, what is
Yeah.
the local government doing about that? Like,
Exactly. It's like it seemed kind of non-existent. Like there's no justice system, it seems like.
the world is totally different.
Yeah.
And how did we get there? That was my biggest thing.
Uh, huh. Yeah. No, that would have been really nice to be able to find out. Um, okay, so for me, let me find where did it go? I couldn't remember neo-noir. That's the term I was trying to
Yes.
remember. So what worked for me, I do think it was believable. And it was very like gritty, very
Mhm.
dark. Like this felt like a
Brutal.
yes, brutal. That's a good word for it. So I think that aspect worked. It made it believable. I did really like I was invested in the characters and kind of what their outcome was going to be. When Angel was sitting in that car at the gas station, I was like, "No, wait, no."
Yeah.
And then when Angel and Lucy like came together and had their little evening together, I was like, "Oh." I cared. So I really did enjoy the characters.
But at
And
the same time, I'm like, guys, why are you doing this right now when this is happening?
you gotta you gotta
It's the
relax
end of the world.
a little
Things are
bit.
blowing up. We got to take a moment. Bow chicka bow
Exactly. Well,
wow.
uh, um, but I don't know, like what didn't work for me. Honestly, there wasn't anything that I could have thought of, but what you said, I would agree with. Just we don't have answers. We don't have much of a backstory. We don't have
Another
all the missing
thing
puzzle pieces.
about that I wanted more background on and more like understanding of,
Mhm.
and I wrote this in my review. I was like, there's a great mix of cultures,
Mhm.
and I thought that was super interesting. But the way that it was written didn't help me really understand much of what was being said.
Mhm.
or like how these cultures came to be together.
Mm.
And some of the wording and the word choices that the author went with, like when he was talking about that drug bubble,
Mm,
I'm like,
mhm.
why did he call it bubble?
Yeah.
Why didn't he just say meth or like whatever, you know? Like I was just like, why are you trying to make it so futuristic? You know,
Mhm.
like I don't know. Sometimes I was just like, what? But yeah, so the culture thing too. I
Mhm.
felt like there was some kind of crossover that I was like missing that I want. It's such an interesting thing to include in the book,
Mhm.
but why not help me understand it more? You
Right.
know, even the stuff that like Angel, when he would have those like memories
Mhm.
or whatever, I don't know what you would call those.
They
Not
almost seem like hallucinations
yeah,
a little bit.
hallucinations, memories, whatever, I don't know, fever dreams, whatever you wanna call them. But when he was it was really related to his culture, and there was that, I don't know, prominent thing in his culture, and I was like, "I don't know anything about that."
Right.
So I wanted that if that's such an important thing, because it was brought up several times, which
Mhm.
leads me to believe that it was important to the author, I'm like, "Why do I still not understand it?"
He did that too with the Mary Perrys.
Mhm.
They were mentioned so many times, and I think finally at the end, I kind of caught on, like, they're like a very intense religious group, but
Yeah. I
it
think so too, yeah.
took me the entire book to really catch on to
It
that.
wasn't until, like, that gas station when they were, like, across the road, it was almost kinda like kind of a cultish, religious,
Yeah.
kind of commune vibe, but again, it wasn't full so it's kinda like it wasn't fully explained,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Hmm. And then the other thing, I don't know if this is a it worked for me or it didn't work for me, or is it just like is what it is, but like there are so many things that it's not like it was comical, but things that kind of lightened the mood a little bit, like the drug being called
Mhm.
Bubble.
Yeah.
Such a serious, dark story, and then just Bubble, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, how ridiculous it is, like, that Angel got shot up and he's, like, bleeding to death, but he survives, like, "Oh, it's fine, he healed." And I don't know, just, like, little things like that.
There definitely were those, and it I think that when you have a book as brutal as this was, when it's talking about hyenas chasing people down and eating them alive, when you have scenes like that and you go to this, like, bubble or like, "Oh, this guy was totally dead, but now he's alive."
Mhm.
Have you seen that thing? It's like, "I'm dead, no, I'm alive." That's what it it reminded me of. Anyway, when it has these lighthearted moments, I think it wasn't like funny, ha ha, laugh out loud all the time. It just there were these little tiny little nuggets of that. And I think it needed that. Otherwise, it would have just been grim.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So I'm glad that it had tiny moments like that.
yeah, for sure. So the end of the book
Mm.
wasn't what I expected.
Okay, well, to be honest, I have no idea what I don't think I was expecting anything. I had no idea. Like where the book starts, Angel's going out to get proof about this thing and get the water for Catherine. That's where the book starts, right? And you hear this hubbub about there's some legal document out there that this water really belongs to so and so. That's also totally believable. It, you know, the people that were here way before us owning stuff and we just stole it from them. So are we just constantly stealing from the person that stole it the last time? That's also totally believable.
Mhm.
But I do like that that was brought up. So I guess that's another thing that I kind of liked. Anyway, so I had no idea what to expect because, like I said, the first half was all set up, the second half was all action.
Mhm.
I knew I wanted my characters to be okay because I had really gotten attached to them like you did. You
Mhm.
know, when they had happy moments, when Angel lived, even though it was a little bit ridiculous, I was like, okay, man, you did it. And I mean, I knew he was being double crossed. I knew that guy, what was his name? Was his name Julio or whatever?
Yeah.
Julio, because it's a H. Julio. I knew he was a bad dude. I knew it. I knew it. So I had no idea what to expect.
Mhm.
And it kind of gave you an ending, like, they saved the day, they did the thing, they're being whisked off back to Nevada. They did it. They accomplished their mission. It's all good. But they didn't really tell you.
Yeah.
So it was a little ambiguous. And I don't know for this novel if I'm okay with that. There's some novels and I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. But I think it was a little bit of a cop out.
Mhm.
I think I would have liked a little bit more, again, explanation of what was happening.
Mhm.
Give me another paragraph.
Yeah. Or like a prologue, or not a prologue, an epilogue of like
Yeah.
a month later, where are the
Yeah.
characters?
Or a year later, where are they now?
Like, I would have liked to see Lucy back home with her sister and her niece and nephew and
Like
Maria.
where she published a great article and she was back on top as a journalist, but she was with her family, and all of that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the ending for me, it did and it did not go where I
Yeah.
expected. I was right there with you. I was like, nobody better die because that would not make me happy. Um, the water rights, the paper, as soon as we found out, or as soon as it was mentioned, that book,
I knew it.
yep,
I knew it. Like, I knew it so hard.
yep, the
I was
first
like, they have mentioned this book too much.
yep, the
But as
first
soon as the
time,
guy that was in the apartment said, "Oh, you can have this book,"
mhm,
I was like, that's where the water rights are
yep.
in that book.
Well, because he was grabbing it or something, and he mentioned like loose paper falling out of it, and he had to like shove it back. And I was like, "What's that?" And then the first time they were mentioned after that scene, I was like, "Well, that's where they are. Maria's got them now."
Yeah. I
So,
knew it because when she was in that apartment and he tried to give her the book that the next morning at breakfast, and she's like, "I don't want this stupid book." And he's like, "No, you
you
have to
do.
have this book." I
Yeah.
was like, "Dude, I wonder why."
Yep.
So yeah,
Yep.
I knew that part for sure.
Yeah. But then Lucy turning on them, kind of
Yeah.
at the last minute. The first time that she turned on him, and having him get shot up at the gas station, I didn't blame her for that because they were threatening her sister and her family.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But then for her at the very end to be like, actually, no, wait. Like, I get why she did it, but I didn't like it. I wasn't happy. So I thought it
Yeah.
was kind of funny that Maria was like, pew.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, 'cause if
Did you
you
know that that book, that Cadillac book, is actually a real book?
is it really?
And it's a nonfiction book. I wrote it down. Hold on. It's called Cadillac Desert. It was
Mhm.
published in 1986, and it's a nonfiction book. And it has to do with water scarcity in those like states and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, OMG, this is awesome.
That's very cool. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
He said something in his author's note about because I was wondering, I was like, who would think of writing a story like this? Like, this is just
Yeah.
so specific. But he said, the roots of this devastated future drew sustenance from the dedicated research and reporting of a number of science and environment journalists whom I have known and followed over the years. If we want to know what the future will look like, it's worth following the people who report the details and trends. So, like, it initially came about because him following these journalists that he really liked the
Interesting.
stories that they were coming out with. So that kind of spawned Lucy's character, and then it kind of grew from there.
Interesting.
So, yeah. Huh.
Yeah, it was the ending was wild.
Yeah.
What I was expecting, but also not, like you said.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, hey, Elena.
Hey,
Didn't read this
Lena.
one, but wanted to come say hi. Well, thanks for doing so. Good to see you. Okay, so one of my new fun things, did anybody come up with a fan cast? Gwen, you mentioned you kind of had somebody for
I
Angel.
have maybe someone. So she said, "Do you think you can do a fan cast?" And I was like, "No, I do not think I can because I'm terrible at fan casts." But for Angel, the only actor I could think of, and I had to like search far and wide for what this actor's name was, Jason Statham,
Statham?
Statham. Yeah,
Oh,
he's
okay.
like bald.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like him.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but I was like, I feel like he has that like gritty,
Yes.
actiony.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, he
I
could
mean, I
be
don't know if I mean, obviously, I don't think Angel's white.
right,
Okay, in
right.
the book. But like I'm not good with actors and actresses and stuff, but I was like someone like
Yeah.
that
Okay.
role.
Okay.
So I don't think it actually fits Angel, but kind
I'm
of.
yeah, like aside, yeah, him not having like the Mexican culture and
Yeah.
whatnot, but character wise,
Mhm.
yes, I could
Mhm.
definitely see that for sure. Um, okay, so for me, for Angel, I actually had 3.
Oh, wow. You're like this person, this person.
Yeah. The first person that I was imagining was Michael Pena. He played in like the remake of Beverly Chips, or no, it's called Chips, I think, with Jack Shep.
Oh, okay.
Because he plays serious roles, but he also has like that level of goofiness.
Yes.
Got
Okay, I
that
can see
vibe.
that.
Yeah, I got that vibe from Angel, but Michael is not like super gritty and like rough and tough, you know?
Right.
I was like, okay, that's not gonna work. So then I started imagining Oscar Isaac.
Okay.
Um, but interestingly, like as the book was going on, my image of Oscar Isaac kept morphing into Pedro Pascal.
Oh, I mean, I was gonna say him too, but I was like, no, you can't literally cast him and everything just because you love
I
him.
know.
But Oscar Isaac, that's a good one.
Like he's my official answer, but
Yes,
Pedro can
100%. 100%.
go.
Like 100%.
Mhm.
I love that. Yeah,
And
this is who she's talking about.
yes. Hi, Arnett.
So, yeah. Totally. That's the answer. That's the answer. Final answer.
And then for Lucy, I was envisioning, I know she doesn't have gray eyes, and that was a big thing for her character, but Aubrey Plaza.
Okay, I don't think
She played in Parks and Recreation. She was April. April?
oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Oh, she kind of looks like a journalist.
yeah.
She looks like a
Yep.
journalist.
So
She
I
does.
again, it was like her
Yeah, this
personality.
one too.
I felt like it
Yeah.
fit. And I don't think Lucy was supposed to be, of Hispanic
No, I
ethnicity
don't.
or anything, but I just saw her portray an older version of a blonde girl, and
Yeah.
I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah.
For Maria, Jenna or Jenny? Oh gosh.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I
Wednesday.
would love that.
Mhm.
You have a fan cast. It needs to happen.
And then I have one more. I also did Catherine Case.
Oh,
She's
okay,
my final
good.
one. Malin Ackerman. Think
Okay.
of like a short blonde bob. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
You got it. That's the fan cast.
So that's who I had playing in my mind.
Yeah. That's a good one. But I wanted to circle back to the people that like tried it and they were like it wasn't pulling them in.
Yeah.
I was stressed because obviously number 1, I picked this book for the book club and I felt so terrible. As soon as I started it, I messaged Elise. I was like, number 1, I don't even know if this is sci-fi at this point. I don't know what's going on. It's very political.
Mhm.
And it was just like I said, it's very info dumpy in the beginning. It is straight up info dumpy,
Mhm.
but I promise you, the second half is action.
Mhm.
And I even looked up Goodreads reviews like, am I even going to make it through this book? And they said that the first half is setup, the second half is action. And I was like, okay, I'm almost to the halfway point. Let's do this.
Mhm.
And so it does pick up in the second half. And
Yep.
it makes sense that they had that much setup.
Yeah.
I think they could have handled it. It could have been written differently. I think flashbacks would have helped. There were a lot of things that I think would have helped me personally enjoy that whole setup more, but it does eventually pick up if you decide to push through and finish it.
Yep. For sure. So I think you kind of mentioned this before,
Yeah.
but would you read again by this author?
I think it would have to be something I'm super interested. I mean, I was super interested in this solely based on my brother-in-law's recommendation.
Mhm.
And I don't typically like super political. This felt to me, and maybe this is me being like sexist, okay? And I'm willing to own that, but it felt like a dude book.
Yep.
It felt very actiony, very brutal, random sex scene in the middle of the world blowing up, like
Mhm.
very like guns and like shootouts and gangs and this is like a dude bro,
Yeah.
an older dude bro book.
Yep.
And I don't typically read that. But as you said, he's written other genres and other things. So I'm not going to rule it out
Right.
that I would read from the author again. But if it's like this, it's not my favorite style of writing.
Yeah.
So take that for a yes or no. I don't know.
Yeah. I agree 100%. No notes.
Yeah. No. It's um
So for people who liked this, or even people who didn't like it and they want something that leaned into the theme a little more, what would you recommend? Book, movie, shows, games, anything like that?
the show The Rain,
Mhm.
obviously, like I said. Also, there's another one called The 3%. And it's not like this at all, but I also really liked that show for some reason. Also just like other climate fiction books,
Mhm.
other water scarcity books.
Mhm.
It also had a little bit of like The Walking Dead in it, where, these people are in power. I'm not going to say anything else because in case you haven't seen it, but certain groups come into power and they control certain areas, and then the other people don't. And, the world's gone to crap. And um, try that nonfiction book, Cadillac Desert. That is literally what the book is about what happens in here.
Mhm.
And then, like I said, Dry by Neil Shusterman and Not a Drop to Drink by Mindy McGinnis specifically deal with water scarcity. Games? Hmm. I don't know. Maybe the Oregon Trail. Because,
Ooh, okay.
I mean, people be dying left and right in that game, too. That's
That's
all I got.
yeah. No, I love that. So for me, I've never seen Mad Max, but it does
Neither.
it does mention it on the front. So there's a blurb on the front that says think Chinatown meets Mad Max. Haven't seen either of those. I actually know
Interesting.
what Mad Max is. I don't know what Chinatown is, but so that also the dryness, the water scarcity makes me think of Dune. So if
Oh, and I haven't seen that or read the book,
you
but
haven't seen Dune, oh my,
no.
I mean, I've seen them each once, but if you're looking for some desert,
Sci-fi.
yeah, that would be a good one. Movies. I just mentioned movies. Another movie. So these two movies, they are gritty and violent, but have some humor. Like they're kind of funny. Not that this was like super funny, but we kind of mentioned there's like some lighter stuff in there. So Smoke and Aces is one. And then Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is another.
Mm,
So
okay. Yeah,
um
I definitely don't watch enough movies.
as far as games, I would say Horizon Forbidden West
I've
because there
never heard of
is
that.
a portion. Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite games. There's a portion, it's a sci-fi game, and there's a portion that takes place in Vegas. It's like it's completely destroyed, and there's like primitive
Interesting.
communities like coming together and repurposing things. So it made me think of that quite a bit. So
Very interesting. I'm gonna have to look that up.
yeah. Chinatown is a classic that definitely fits. Okay, perfect. Thank you for confirming that. Yeah, I don't even think I've heard of it before, to be
Yeah.
honest. So, but good to know that it fits. All right, Gwen, what'd you rate it?
Um, I don't know. I struggled.
Yeah.
I struggled with the writing. I struggled with the not knowing, I think was the biggest thing for me. Um, I thought it was okay. At the
Mhm.
end of the day, I thought it was okay. So whatever that rating is to other people, go with that. But in my rating, I'm giving it a 2.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I feel like I'm kind of being generous with the 2 because it was a little bit of a slog to get through because the first half was very like I was like, "Oh Lord, if I wasn't doing this for a discussion, I'd be done." I would have been done after like chapter 2. But it was a struggle, but there were parts that, I eventually was like, okay, the action's picking up. I like the characters. I care what they're doing. But I
Mhm.
feel like there was more that I didn't like about it
Mhm.
than I did like about it.
Gotcha.
But I thought at the end, hated the first part, thought the second part was good. So
Mhm.
it was okay. And
Okay.
okay is 2 stars for me, like
Okay.
in the middle. I don't know. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So for me, this is not a book I would have ever picked up if you didn't suggest it for the book club. And I probably would have DNF'd it if I was not reading it for the book club. Um, that being said, I'm glad I finished it. I didn't love the writing, but it was still objectively good.
Mhm.
And like I said, I was attached to the characters and I wanted to find out what happened. So for me, it was decent, better than okay. Nothing that I would recommend to a wide variety of readers, nothing that I would ever revisit. So my final rating is 3.5.
Okay, that's pretty high, I think, 3.5. I think that's because you cared about the characters.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's big for me. Like if I don't care about the characters.
you're out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's funny because we had basically the same thoughts, but our ratings are different. That
Right.
I hate putting star ratings on things because I feel like sometimes when I put a star rating on things
Mhm.
and everybody's ratings are different, like I feel like I don't want to steer people away from it because I mean, obviously there's people out there that have loved this book.
Mhm.
But I'm just not one of them.
If they ever made this into a movie, would you?
I would probably watch it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't like rush out to the theater opening day, but like
Right.
if it was on Netflix and I didn't have anything else to watch, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I read that once. Let me
Yeah.
watch it
Yeah.
to see if the movie's better. Who did they fan cast?
Exactly. Um, I tried to see, I was like, this book's been out for a while and it's got a pretty big fandom. So I was like, maybe it is a movie. And I don't know, but there's not currently a movie for it. But I did see that there was discussion like a few years ago about it potentially
Hmm,
being like a mini series or a movie, but nothing has come of it that I could find.
interesting.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. Thanks for those that read along with us.
Or tried.
Yes. Just gave it a go and it wasn't for you. That's okay. So next month we are going to be reading Glass Houses by Madeline.
Ooh.
My co-host is going to be Elizabeth of Reading Riley, and the discussion will be July 30th, 7 p.m. right here. So go ahead and pick this up if it sounds interesting. It's like an AI house on a private island and things
Love AI houses. Sounds interesting.
go. So, all right. Oops, got a comment. 1 second. Thank you. Do you plan to finish reading the book? Awesome. Well, thanks for joining and
Yes, thank
like
you.
providing that insight onto like the water stuff.
Yeah, that was so interesting.
It was. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So, all right, everyone. I will go ahead and link Gwen's YouTube, Instagram, book club, podcast, all that fun stuff in the description below. So be sure to check that out. Give her a follow if you don't already. But other than that, have a great evening and we will talk to you next month. Bye.
Bye.